Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021, and we're here with Rudy for, of course, Rudy Psychic Meetup. So, how's it going tonight, Rudy?
Hey, it's going great, and happy first day of fall, everyone. Today is the autumnal equinox. So, for those of you, we are officially in fall, Sam. So, I think you have some predictions for the fall time frame. So, it starts today. So, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's jump into tonight's topic. I wanted to cover an interesting one, which is some supposed secret technology of the Third Reich, so Germany in the World War II era. And the funny thing is, over here, Steve M on the side said, "Hey, I was just going to ask about one of these projects." So in order to really kind of set the stage, you have to. These things get convoluted and conflated. But if we go back to around the 1930s, there were a lot of I wouldn't call them secret societies, but more occult societies in Germany, and actually, all over the place. I think the mysticism of the New Age around the 20s and 30s was a very popular thing. But one of the societies was the Thule Society. So we have to mention them first because they were a study group for German antiquity and sort of occultist, and a lot of the people in this Thule Society ended up being who's who of the Nazi Party. Hitler wasn't one, but a lot of the people in there were part of the society, and they were very big on the Germanic order and the Aryan race. And in order to be part of this, you had to ascribe or attest to the purity of your blood. Later on, you had this. I don't know if I'm saying this right. I think we need David 14 here to give us the pronunciation. But I'm going to call it the Honor Bay Society, the Society for Ancestral Heritage. And this was like Heinrich Himmler's think tank, where they actually almost a propaganda arm, where they would promote this racial theory and go out, of how they would do research to get evidence that Aryans lived across Eastern Europe and justify a lot of the things that they did. So the Thule Society itself has really kind of been centered on some of these conspiracy theories due to some of the occult background. But then there was also this third one I want to talk about, which is the Vril Society. And this was based on, this was more of a secret society that some people believe actually gave birth to the Nazi Party. But there's a popular book, and they talked about the Vril, or the coming race. And this was a race of people that lived in the inner earth that were kind of superior beings to regular people. And eventually, like, this was a pre the Noah's Ark flood, antediluvian race. And eventually they were going to come out of the center of the earth and kind of rule. But one of the things within the Vril Society they talked about was the secret Vril energy, which was kind of electromagnetism, 0 point energy. And this technology would really serve two purposes, or a couple purposes, but it would help Germany have energy independence and then expand the empire through conquest. So, Sam, and one of the reasons these were popular is because people were thinking Nazis maybe somehow had this inside track to some, either extraterrestrial technology or out of this world technology. So, Sam, with all these societies that were going at the time during this time period, can you see that anyone found any secret knowledge or secret technology that helped the Germans in their war efforts around the 30s and 40s?
Yes, I do believe that they did have alien craft crash in Germany and they did reverse engineer it. It was before the Second World War, but in probably the late 1930s. So it would have been close
Yeah,
to
right around this
the
time frame.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did get some secret technologies from it. I can't say specifically which. I know that they had those rockets that looked like airplanes
Uh-huh.
that they used to fire at
The buzz
Britain,
bombs. Yeah.
and they would make it there.
Mm-hmm.
And, those were very damaging, and they didn't require any pilots. Um, I think some of the technology for that, even though not directly related,
Yeah.
because it was more to do with the materials they found, and
Okay.
also the sort of anti-gravitational devices that were in the craft that crashed. I don't think they were able to fully figure it out, but there was some other things that led to some happy accidents
Okay.
that gave them that particular the idea for that particular rocket. Maybe it was somebody who was working on reverse engineering it
Yeah.
who couldn't figure something out, but said, hey, you know, what I can do is I can build that rocket. So that it could be
Okay.
that kind of situation, because people would be like, well, what alien technology? And I'm like, this is the best I can see with the story, that they are actually spinning a pretty big story for me on this. This is very interesting. It's like watching a movie here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Werner von Braun, he's one of the German scientists that came over during Project Paperclip after the war, but I think there's some things where he had mentioned that, alluded to extraterrestrial technology. So interesting. I thought we would be debunking a lot of crap here, but apparently
Yeah.
there's some truth to that, which is why we do these shows, because you never know what we're going to get, right?
Yeah. Well, the middle of the earth people thing, that is total garbage. And the reason why they made that up was because they felt like they had an opportunity to spin a story that favored them, the quote unquote Aryan race,
Yeah.
right? That had to do with aliens. And then having this technology, to
Oh,
back it up. But really, they knew diddly squat. They didn't even know where it came from. They didn't know, like, they had no clue, right? But they just made up this story. And then, of course, people were like, oh, well, it must be true because here they have
yeah.
these parts from this alien craft. And
Well, and that's, really when you look at, yeah, when you look at World War II from a big picture perspective, Germany really had amazing technology, which kind of helped them propel themselves in the early days. They just didn't have the resources, whereas the U.S. just had immense amount of resources to throw at
yeah.
the war effort. So that was the big difference there. But Sam, in order to have any of these secret programs, right, you're going to have secret bases, and some of the quote unquote evidence around these like secret space programs or some of the secret technology, people will use some of the ruins that were built during the wartime to justify these. And there was a Project Reese or Rice. I think it's a translation for giant. It was a secret underground construction project between like 1943, 1945 in the Al Mountains of what is modern day Poland. I think it was maybe part of Germany back then. But it's believed that some of these weapons were developed there. But Sam, let me show you a picture here of some of these ruins and see what you get. Let's see here, share. There we go. And see what you get as we look at these. So these are some of the ruins that are around. And this is said to be kind of like a place where they corralled a lot of these UFOs or these flying objects that were somehow the base for this. And they're just these concrete, almost like octagon or hexagon structures. But they are actually really reminiscent of things we see today. So Sam, what do you think is when you look at these ruins of the Nazi structures? Were they just like fuel tanks or fuel storage or cooling towers or anything extraterrestrial or secret about those?
Well, those were landing pads.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And the reason why they're that high up is just because of the fuselage,
Yeah.
what's coming out of it, burning the ground or whatever.
Oh,
And
right. Okay.
they were trying to, but they weren't truly successful in. I mean, the war took things over, right? They needed
Right.
to redirect their efforts away from that. And of course, they can't allow the Allies to get any of that information. I believe it was mostly burned up.
Okay, interesting. So they were actually would use to launch, almost like the way we have rockets today, and we have all that stuff funneled underground for the rocket exhaust. Yeah, because one of the things that if we're going to debunk this, you can see similar structures used for cooling towers, or a lot of cities around will have these natural gas pipelines. So when I saw those, I was thinking, well, maybe it's one of these things, but you never know. But yeah, this is all that remains. All the wires and everything else around it is gone. So interesting. Okay, very cool. Yeah. So as far as these secret bases went, Sam, do you think that they were used more for development of the secret technology, or just preparation for the wartime to have underground secret bases, be able to produce munitions or weapons? What do you think the primary purpose of a lot of these underground bases were?
Well, it was to continue the research in a private way.
Okay.
And what happened is that, like I said, the war kind of redirected funds and took over, because people who worked in these facilities, I mean, they needed a paycheck, they needed to be
Yeah.
supported. And Germany ended up having to really cancel everything and anything at the end. I mean, they were grabbing 13-year-olds off the street and
Yeah.
forcing them to fight.
Um, Yeah, and it's interesting with these stories persist, and it's really you have the Indiana Jones stories, video games, Wolfenstein, even I think the Captain America series. They all had talk about secret Nazi German technology. So it's interesting as we go through that there is something to this. So I want to talk about some secret flying machines that were supposedly around, and this may go to the UFO thing that you mentioned. The first one, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but it's called the Houndboo Disc, and it was kind of like a flying saucer-shaped object. And this was one of those things that was powered in theory with like anti-gravity, or it was a saucer-shaped object from the 1930s. Yeah, and from the Vril Society. So they were saying this was part. They used electromagnetic fields as free energy in areas where they tested the disc. It was about 25 feet across. It would hold about 8 people. And should we share again? Let me go to the disc. So I'll take some pictures of it. So it was kind of what we think of as a typical flying saucer, and we see a picture here with a gun mounted below that. I don't know if that was a real or this is some sort of fake picture. But Sam, what do you think as you look at these pictures? Was this kind of that reverse engineered Nazi technology?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Yeah, you see you talk about these three cones on the bottom of the saucers, and they typically, I think I've seen other ones where um, who is the guy from Nevada, Bob's Lazar, and he talks about that these were kind of like or gravity uh, modifiers or something that would actually
Yeah.
help propel the ship.
Yes. They just
Cool.
couldn't figure it out
Okay.
100%, so they still had to use like the rocket, like that type of. But anyways, they did use the anti-gravitational, but I think they used more the rocket to
Okay.
maneuver in the direction, whereas like real spaceships,
Yeah.
they're seamless. But
That-
yeah, they're from
yeah.
another place.
Interesting. Yeah, you could think some of these would be landed there.
Yeah, because when you
Interesting.
look at the shape and around the
Yeah.
size, that would fit.
Okay.
I mean, they wouldn't land them on the ground.
That's actually a good point. Yeah. That's a really good point. Let's look at this other one, which is called the Nazi Bell, or Die Glocke. I think I'm saying that right. So this is kind of this artist rendition of this acorn or bell-shaped object. And this was a hard metal object about 12 to 15 feet tall and 9 feet in diameter. And a Polish journalist described it, as the bell had two counter-rotating 1-inch thick lead cylinders inside. It contained this liquid metal called Zerum 525. It looked like mercury, but it kind of glowed purple. But anyway, Sam, do you think that this Nazi bell was actually developed and flown? Is this one of the objects that you see?
No, I don't get anything in regards to that. That
Okay.
doesn't mean that it wasn't. I just don't get anything. You were reading about it. I wasn't getting any pictures, any story.
Okay.
So it's one of those, I got nothing.
Yeah, and no one can really explain what it did, or there's no evidence of it. But one of the interesting parallels to this was later on after the war in 1965. This was December 9th, 1965, in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, in the United States. There was a description of a large fireball going across the side, seen by thousands of people. If you ever watch History Channel, this shows up, in those UFO stories. In the civilians talk about. They saw this thing, or this acorn-shaped bell, crashed. Later on, the military kind of shows up and corrals the area and cleans everything out. And then they see this acorn-shaped object loaded on the back of a military truck and carted out of there. They describe these markings on the bottom that were similar to this weird stuff that were supposedly on this Nazi bell. So, Sam, if we jump to 1965, do you think that this thing that landed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, had any relation to Nazi technology, or was it the United States, or was it Germany? What do you think that was?
That I do not know. I got nothing on that as
Okay.
well.
All right. Well, that's all right. We got quite a lot on the other cool stuff. So that's really, I'm actually surprised at the information you were getting on that. So that's really, really
Yeah, me
cool.
too. So, I mean,
Um,
just sometimes for some reason I get a whole lot of nothing. So, yeah.
yeah, we don't want to use them all up, right? So then, lastly, what I want to go into is along this line. I know that like you can go on into so much detail on all these topics, but we're just kind of scratching the surface here. But lastly, this will take us to the mid 1940s, late 1940s, Operation High Jump, and this was a mission from the United States Navy where Admiral Byrd was tasked to take a fleet down to Antarctica and it kind of explore the area. And really, the mission on paper was kind of do some training, establish a base, see how would you maintain a base down there, how could you, what's the feasibility of setting up operations in Antarctica, as well as kind of establishing the U.S. dominance in that area. And he did a lot of exploration, and he gave us a couple interesting TV interviews where he says some interesting things. But one of the claims that you get in as you get in these stories where people talk about Nazi technology is that, there was a lot of Nazi missions where they kind of went to Brazil or South America, that area, and established some bases there. And there's a theory that Nazis actually went and kind of went into this area of Antarctica and kind of had a base set up in the center. And it is, Admiral Byrd described it as you have said, where there's like greenery and like it's, you can see water falling and all that kind of stuff. So it's very much as you described. And one of the things that they say is Admiral Byrd said that they encountered these flying ships once they kind of went into this. I don't know what if I want to call it, like not going into the earth, but they went into this huge cavern maybe,
Yeah.
and they encountered flying ships there. So as I talk about that, Sam, do you think there's anything to that story?
Yes.
Okay. Do you get any more information on what those might have been? Like, would it have been this Nazi technology, or would it just be a good place for the extraterrestrials to hang out and be hidden?
It was just a good place for the extraterrestrials
Okay.
to hang out and be hidden. They were able to find these were actually naturally occurring bodies of water,
Okay.
where it was quite warm
Yeah.
down there. And it was covered. It was like in a big cavern, but it was when you and I think of caves, we think of something that we can see the top and
Mm.
see the bottom. These you could fit a city in.
Wow. It
Mhm.
was almost like a big, what do I want to call it?
Yeah.
Like a big divot almost.
Yeah, but they were able to find it with their technology because they had to find a place to hide. They can go underwater as well,
Okay.
but they can't go outside their ship then, right? If they are underwater. And sometimes, you know,
Okay.
they have a need to go outside of the ship. So
Interesting. Okay.
that worked out really well for them down there. They're not currently there now.
That was my next question. So interesting, and one of the things Admiral Byrd talked about was he saw like within 180 miles of the coast, he said there is enough coal there to power the United States indefinitely. And I think Cliff may have mentioned this, like some really high grade, almost like it was a big pile of coal just sitting there in a mountain. Um, do you think is that actually there? And like, would someone have mined that, or is that just a naturally occurring thing that's down there?
I feel like it is a naturally occurring thing.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like we still have some interesting things to come out of Antarctica that hopefully we'll see here in the next couple of years, right? But
Yeah, well, the
wow.
caverns are still there, so maybe that's what everybody was doing flying down there. They were just taking a look at these great big amazing caverns that you could fly a ship through.
Well, maybe they'll open it up for regular folks to see. I don't know why they keep. Maybe I guess because there are some immense resources there is why they keep it secret. But I would love to be able to see some of this stuff. So, all right. Well, Sam, interesting stuff tonight. Thanks for that blab. We surprisingly we got a lot more information than I thought we would. So this was fun.
Yes, it's always a good time. I always look forward to whatever topics you're going to come up with.
All right, well, let's jump into the questions. We only have 13 now, so we will get started. Our first question with 6 upvotes from Matt Zelenko says, Dear Friendly 2, if each of us decides before birth to be born as human, i.e. there's no one else it's no one else's decision, but always of an individual soul in question, then what kind of information are we presented, if any, before we make the decision? Once the info is presented, do some of us hesitate, postpone, or need time to reconsider this offer, I guess, to be incarnated? So we can look at the details of the contract, or is it more likely, yeah, sure, why not? Let me be human again. It's all fine. Thank you, soulfully, Matt Zelenko.
Well, that's such a great question. Thanks so much, Matt Zelenko. No wonder it was upvoted one of the top ones tonight. And it's interesting that you asked that question, because that was something that was, I sort of had an information dump today that was along those lines, because I mean, it was a question that I had, and it just randomly came up. Actually, I was driving, and the people on the other side just randomly told me that normally you don't get to choose whether you're going to be male or female or any of the other. There's, I guess, 5 different sort of cards that you're dealt. And it includes, the culture, whether you're male or female, your intellect, like how smart you are, because that plays a part as well. And your general overall health is a big one too. I mean, if people come here with disabilities or that kind of thing, but no, nothing. You don't make or agree to any plan. People tell, oh yeah, and you make this plan. And I'm like, yeah, then what's the fun? What's the fun in it? You're just, see, the bottom line is you're over there and you want to move ahead. There's some other places you want to go and things you want to do, but those are up a level, and you can't go there. Well, how can you get there eventually? Oh, well, you can go back to Earth and you can improve yourself as a light being. You can't do it on the other side because everything's already perfect.
Okay.
Everything's hunky-dory over there, right? So down here, where it's like, oh my gosh, you even have to go to the bathroom. You got to have food. You got to have a roof over your head. And then you have relationships on top of that. And some people like just get a big fat F on. So in so many areas, they have so many areas to work on. And the idea is that with whatever hand you're dealt, because this is all considered, that's why they talk about the talents. I like the stories that Jesus told in the Bible, and he talked about the talents and how you're going to be judged, because when you look at it on the other side, when you have your end of life review, if you haven't done a lot for other people, and I'm not talking about your family, right? I'm talking about total and complete strangers, your society around you, like that's not a good thing. Like that's not a good state of being to be in, even just if it's a little thing, that you do to make the world a better place. So all that stuff is looked at, but believe me, I tell you, this is true, Matt Zelenko. People the light beings we step forward on the other side to come down here to Earth to learn more and improve and to learn and to grow. And that's why the Earth realm is special. But the things that happen here, these are all natural. Like there's always a chance of, you can fall off a cliff, you can get in a car accident, right. You can get cancer, you can, have one of your kids get really, really sick and pass away. And, so many terrible things can happen when you're here, but it's the things that challenge us when we're here, the terrible things that never happen on the other side. And it's how you deal with it as the person that you are and are trying to become. Because really, who I am now at the age that I am at, it's been all my experiences since being here that have shaped me to who I am today, and the choices that I make, right, left, and whether or not I decided to take on the challenge of doing what it is that I was supposed to do. And a lot of people ask me, what's my purpose? I'm like, oh, don't ask me that. It's not for me to answer for you, so maybe I can give you some clues. We can check it. I find the people on the other side are at least glad that you're asking. But yeah, I find, I hope that doesn't blow too many people away, because I know that a lot of people teach that you put your plan together on the other side before you come here. And that's not true at all. Like zero truth to that. And if somebody else is saying that, maybe they're just misunderstanding.
I think of the video game Minecraft, where you start off, you have nothing, and you have to make everything. And if you die, you start over again with everything, right? And all these video games have you start back to a certain set point, but it sounds like you just, once you're done, and you have to start over with nothing.
Right. You cross over to the other side. You have your end of life review. Did you get to move ahead, or did you get an F on your report card?
Yeah.
Right. How'd you do? Did you improve? Are you going to level up on the other side? Are you going to be given more responsibility?
Yeah.
It's a perfect world on the other side. So how do you know it? How can you learn and grow? Well, you come here to learn and grow, and that's the shame about, somebody dying by an accident versus suicide is different, because when you die from suicide, when you cross over, the things that you had sort of credited to you, they just don't count.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
it's so against the rules to kill yourself. Like, if you're thinking about it, do not do it. And if your kid has done it, don't worry about it. They're there on the other side waiting for you. This whole they went to hell stuff, that's total BS.
Now, in your case, were you able to make any decisions around, like, are there special cases where, if you're dealt these 5 cards, but are there any cases where some of the stuff can be predetermined?
Yes. That's when it was brought up to me today that I had actually chosen to be female.
Okay.
Right. But it was brought up that that's not a normal choice that people are given. But because I'm here on special assignment, I guess you can call it that. I consider it pretty special. Well, I consider it pretty special, but in order to make it work, because the feminine is much less aggressive. It's more acceptable for what the type of thing that I do. Because people have to tell me their story, and then while they're talking to me, that's when I get the information. And I find that just with the feminine, it's easier for people to open up. There are advantages. I think most people would agree. Yeah. And that's just sort of the conversation I had with myself and the people on the other side that tied in with Matt Zelenko's question that led into the whole story about what I felt I was supposed to share with you guys, because it was something that was brought up just in the last 24 hours.
Okay. In the chat, Wyatt and Cat M want to know, does who actually chooses the cards you're dealt, or is it just random?
Who chooses? I do not know the answer to that.
Or even if it does get chosen, I would think it's just kind of like, here's the area you're going. This is how the system works.
I think it has something to do with predestiny. There's something to that. Predestined. You are predestined.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's how it's decided. It's not even another entity that decides. It just is.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Our next question from Raymond, 5 votes. Hi. Hello, Sam and Rudy. A lot of changes are happening socially and politically. What is it going to look like for the U.S. and Canada in the year 2100? Thanks. So, Raymond, a long-term planner here.
Well, first of all, Canada will be through its worst part by 2100. So your grandkids will, if you're a younger person today, you'll probably have grandchildren in 2100. So if you're worried about them, so the US and Canada are 2 of the countries that will fare much better during this upheaval. It will not be taken over by socialism in the US, but I think Canada will fall victim to socialism and will sell a lot of its resources in order to support this system.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Thanks, Sam. Our next question comes from the Powers One. Hi, Sam. You've talked about the Three Gorges Dam breaking sometime in the future. Any idea how close we are to that event?
Not close at all. I feel like the breakup of China will be as a result of the starvation of its people, the economic meltdown from the dishonesty in the government supporting corrupt people in China. And there'll be a number of there'll be other natural disasters. Like I felt like there was going to be a really big earthquake as well. Yeah. One that countries will send help, to China. because it's going to be there's going to be so many people, like thousands of people will die, like maybe like 40,000 or something.
Wow.
So it'll be like a large number of people who will die from this earthquake in China. So, but the destruction, you can imagine the destruction that it'll do, this earthquake. So that is what I see as potentially their next big disaster, not the Three Gorges Dam.
Okay.
I know they're saying that, that maybe it'll be an earthquake that will make it go. But for some reason, I'm feeling like there's not an earthquake close enough to the Three Gorges Dam to do damage to it.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was if China does break up like that, then you could run into no resources to maintain, and who's going to bother to maintain the dam, and eventually it just kind of doesn't get maintained like it should. So
Yeah, I mean, any number of things can happen
yeah.
for sure. But thanks to Theo Powers for bringing that question forward and giving me a chance to talk about China, because I know it's on a
Oh,
lot of people's minds.
Theo Power. Sorry, Theo. I didn't see the O in your name. All right.
Yeah.
Winner, it's retirement year, says, "Hey guys, love the show. Just got this weird question and thought I'd ask. We all understand light and dark energy. Yeah, my question is, can a living human use both light and dark whilst inhuman without consequences?" Sorry, weird question. Not sure if it's plausible. So, Sam, can we use both the light and the dark side?
Without consequences. It's interesting what you say about use, um, because sometimes the dark, the nasties, you just let them do their thing, but then the outcome was what cleared the way for you to do what it is that you were needing to do for the good side. Do you know what I mean? So I mean that's kind of as close as you get to the using the dark side, I guess, is by being aware that I think about a circumstance in my own personal life that I've talked about in the past, about what happened with me, and that what the people were doing was just downright, I mean, it was just not even their personality to do that sort of crap, right? I was just like, well, I think that I'm definitely going to have to be doing this, because they're just making it so that I don't want to stay in that other place at all. I'll clean toilets before I do that, like you're just done, right? So, but the thing is that you see it happening and stuff. I didn't instruct it, but it was part of sort of the stage. So I do feel like in order for the world to exist the way that it does, that darkness is necessary. Now, am I allowed to use darkness and not suffer consequences? No, I am not.
Yeah, you wouldn't command it to do something. You wouldn't use it.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not.
that makes
I'm
sense.
absolutely not under any circumstances. And I do warn people against anything that is, I call them tools of divination. And that means when you don't have abilities like I do, but you want to conjure them. So you play with a Ouija board, for example, or you play with tarot cards. And it's fine. Listen, if someone's a medium and they want to use tarot cards for their focal point or what have you, listen, I got nothing to say about that, because you're not conjuring, you have the ability. I can't discourage people strongly enough about that, with that, because again, it gives the opportunity for these, the darker entities that exist here to have an opportunity or a door in, because again, it's all about choices.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Sam. Our next question comes from Cowboy Coder. Hi, Sam and Rudy. Will the chaos going on with Evergrande in China be the catalyst for the rest of the world to plunge into a deep recession? If so, does crypto become a bastion of wealth preservation the world over? As always, thanks for all the great value you bring to the alternative topics. It's much appreciated. So, Evergrande, is this going to be the start of the collapse?
Yes, but you'll be surprised how long it takes for everything to happen. I mean, the money printing is going to go on for a bit longer. Interest rates aren't really going up until probably next year.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm watching gold, silver, because really gold hasn't gone up much I mean, it's down in the last year.
Okay.
But when we got in, it was really cheap. Like it was under 1,300. So if you were looking for a store of wealth and you were just holding your gold for, you know, as your, instead of, you know, why hold it in the bank, right? It's not being worth anything.
Yeah.
But I'm still with what I'm looking at with gold. I mean, the price that it is now compared to what it will be once this all starts to happen, it is going to be worth a lot more. Same with silver, but wowzers for cryptos. Like that's why I always say like the majority of my cash, I put it into cryptocurrencies. I only put a much smaller percentage into gold and silver, just because, you know, again, the same reason that you have real estate. You know, you spread it out, and I do feel like Evergrande is going to be the start of it. And I just want to remind everybody again that if there is a collapse and markets go down, if you see real estate going down as well, you have an opportunity there as well that would not have existed. So again, you may see a very short period of deflation or prices going down sort of across the board as people are sort of selling and jumping off for whatever price. But where does this scared money go? Where is it going? Right? It's got to go somewhere. It's just like, you know, electricity. It's like energy. Energy never ends. It just changes shape.
So we go into cryptos then, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Gold, silver, cryptos. All this scared money is going to flow into it. And when's that going to happen? How much would cryptos dip before it happens? I don't know. Darn if I know. I mean, the market could go, let's say, to 8 trillion and then pull back to like 3 trillion, you know, and then it's your own darn fault if you didn't take any profits. I mean, I'm not feeling sorry for you if you're like, oh no, the humanity, you know, but I'm just telling you, I told you guys we're in the beginning of the Whitewater Rapids. We're in the first third and we're not even coming up on the half yet. So I'm like, eh.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. But anyways, we're all hanging out here together. We're going to be fine. It's, you know, US, Canada, Mexico form a trifecta. And, you know, we're friends with the UK. We're friends with Europe. We're friends with a lot of people. So, you know, we can all get through this together. I'm very confident. But yes, I think that this is the beginning of what we were expecting and talking about for a long time. This was the economic collapse I was talking about that would shake people out of this whole COVID nonsense, right? Because right now everyone's still so hyper focused on this and they don't see the tsunami of debt that's coming to slaughter them.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Sam. Justin has kind of a general question here, but what changes are coming for New England? And New England is the northeastern United States. So Boston, like that Boston area, New Hampshire, I think is all up in that area. Sam, any political, I don't know, environmental thing, economic changes for that region of the U.S.?
Yes, it's going to be hit and miss with which places do the best in New England. I think it's like maybe Virginia or West Virginia. One of the two is going to do better than a lot of the other. I'd have to look closer at the statistics and stuff. I think in a previous blab, I had said which state it was, because I was like, is there two, Virginia and West Virginia? And I wasn't sure, but then it was in that blab that I said which one was going to do better. But I was immediately drawn to that one again. And of course, New Jersey's not going to do very well, and New York State's going to probably have to declare bankruptcy, and it's going to be it's going to be a bit of a bad situation. Excuse me, for a lot of people. But again, the U.S. being the U.S. will pull out of it and eventually right themselves. I hope I don't have the hiccups now. That's going to be bad.
I hope so.
I don't think I've ever had the hiccups before during a show.
All right. Our next question comes from Chris. It says, "Hi, Sam and Rudy. What do you see as the next financial black swan after Evergrande, and what do you feel will be the timing? Will the next black swan event be the event that takes the financial markets to a meltdown, or do you see it as a gradual process over a 1 to 2 year time frame?"
I think with the blab from the answer in the previous question that it's going to be a gradual thing, because I keep getting, you'd be surprised how long they can keep this going. But again, what happens in China is really going to affect Australia quite a bit.
Okay.
Right. And what's going on in Europe is going to affect the UK quite a bit,
Okay.
you know, and it's just going to be, it depends on where you live in the world, is what it's going to come down to. But yeah, there's just going to be one thing after the other, because as Evergrande goes down, then you find out they're not the only one who were, you know, cooking the books and just, they were just being irresponsible.
As you've always said, watch Deutsche Bank, right? That's that'll be another key temporal marker there.
Yeah, and the volcano in Italy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that one just keeps exploding. It just keeps going on and forever, and people are still living around it and stuff. I'm like, oh well, it must be when it loses its top.
Yeah.
It must be that, and then Deutsche Bank is going down at the same time, or that part of the banking industry.
Okay. All right. Our next question is from Travis. Hi there. Any thoughts on the infamous coastal areas that some of the other mediums keep mentioning as far as staying away from most coastal areas? Whether or not it's a natural disaster that's going to happen or a major tsunami change in geographic mapping, sun flare, meteor, comet, anything that you sense at all. I'm feeling like we need to move inland as we are only 3 miles from the coast right now. Thoughts? Thank you very much. And Travis, you didn't say what part of the state you're in, but I don't know if you're talking the West Coast or the East Coast of the U.S. maybe.
Well, I remember that Travis is in Alaska, because he's the fella that was on the Ask a Medium, and I asked him, and I pinpointed the Midwest of the United States, that he was looking for property there. Or I wanted to know if he lived there, and then he said he's in Alaska, but that's where he's looking, is that area. That's why I was picking that up. So that's how I remember who Travis is, because that just happened. At the last Alaska meeting.
Good memory.
Yeah, so I don't think you need to worry about that, Travis. I think that it's unfortunate when mediums become like disaster mediums. I don't really like talking about disasters. I don't really see a lot. If it comes up in the blab, I definitely, you know, you've seen when it comes up in the blab. I mean, we publish it, because then after it happens, we're like, oh no, you know, holy smokes. But this whole coastal water thing, I think that this is just a lot of plays to get attention. I don't think, and you know what? It's like the same as saying that, oh, you see a mushroom cloud. You know, it's like, look, you know what? It can be a lot of things. It can be a volcano. It can be a plane crash. It can be like the Beirut, Lebanon explosion.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really big one, you know, and they could have described that as a mushroom cloud as well. And I just really stay away from this generalized stuff. And so when someone's like talking about that kind, they're very generalized. And I would also look at what their track record is. It's like, how accurate are they? Are they looking for clicks? I'm very suspicious of, you know, disaster medium stuff, because I stay away from it, because it raises people's anxiety. And, you know, at least I'm able to calm people about earthquakes and things like that, where they keep talking about the big one, and you know, California's not sliding into the ocean. Just everyone needs to calm down. So just, you know, but are there going to be problems on the coast? Of course there's going to be. There's going to be hurricanes. There's going to be some places that have earthquakes. I mean, there's going to be, you know, some tsunami somewhere at some time, maybe not necessarily in the United States, but remember, you even get rogue waves all the time that sweep in. You know, I remember being in Daytona one time, not long after they had a rogue wave come in during the night, and it literally swept through like all of the bottom floor of all the hotels.
Wow. And even I think in Miami, there's like a king tide where it's high tide and then a full, there's all kinds of weird stuff that happens. So yeah, that's, don't confuse entertainment with valuable, useful information that you can actually leverage to make decisions. So, all right. Our next question comes from Diddy. Hi, Sam. I live in Victoria, Australia. What is going on with this craziness? Every sector is getting mandated for the jab. What are we supposed to do? Thanks.
So the one that I actually clicked on,
sorry,
must have upvoted, was I'll come to that one next, but I already hit the answer.
The Z. Okay.
Yes, me. So if you want
So
to read it.
yeah, dearest Sam and Rudy, do you see vaccination passports become the way of life for people in New South Wales, Australia? If yes, for how long and how much will it affect the lives of unvaccinated people? Thanks for all you do for us. This will traumatize.
Well, I think this goes back to what's going on in China and how badly this is going to affect Australia. And do you really think that they're going to be pushing these vaccine passports when there's a large percentage of people who aren't even vaccinated yet, don't want to be vaccinated, and will boycott businesses that require the vaccine? And because not all businesses are considered, like I was at the liquor store earlier today, and I asked them, well, when you guys get the vaccine, do you guys know anything about the vaccine passport? Like, is that going to be a requirement to come in here? And he said, oh, he goes, no, he goes, we're considered an essential service. And yeah, that's what he said. I was like, all right, then. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, a lot of places that are putting these vaccine passports in, they're not going to keep people out of the grocery store
Yeah.
or the liquor store or, the bank, for example. Like they have to take you if you're a customer there. It's an essential service. So it's really just, restaurants and bars and the ones that are clamoring for your entertainment money. And what'll happen is that people just won't go out as much. They'll be
Yeah.
like, they'll have their own parties because, you can still go to the liquor store. You don't have to go out anymore. And if they're going to require a vaccine pass, so that's going to fall apart real quick, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Is that, Australia is going to get such a boot in the pants from China hitting the bricks that it's not, that's going to be the least of their problems, this whole vaccination
Yeah.
ridiculousness.
So then that kind of does tie into Diddy's question there, which is, and they're specifically Australia, but what should they do? Can they do anything if they all like? Do you see them fighting back and saying no?
Yeah, well, just people will just be like, no.
Yeah.
No, I'm not coming to your restaurant. No, I'm not going to. I'm not doing it. Fire me then. But see, they're so desperate for workers, especially anybody who has any sort of, specialty.
Hmm.
Do you know how long I have to wait to get my, click flooring, hardwood flooring put in?
Yeah.
When I had that wall demolished in my house, the renos that I'm doing, it's taking like 10 times longer to get anything done
Wow.
because there's no people who could. Oh, I finally found a painter. Finally. So my front stairs can finally get painted, and we're going to paint the back room before the flooring is put in. Like, I'm trying to get this stuff done before inflation really hits big.
Yeah.
So that is on my mind, right? So this is what's going to be happening. So I can't see this carrying on for much longer because of the economic meltdown. Now, maybe it'll carry on for another year. I mean, maybe this is, me just condensing it in my own mind because maybe I'm wishful thinking, but I'm really not feeling like it's going to last that much longer as far as these vaccinations and mandates and everything, just because of the economic situation. That look at the UK. I mean, they're in so much trouble right now. And I feel really bad for the people there. Like, they're not going to get anything. It's going to be like a really bad situation in the UK, and that's going to be scary for people. And they're going to be like, well, we don't care about this vaccination and mask BS. We need food. We need clean water. We need a roof over our head. We need jobs. So the politicians are going to have to do what the people are clamoring for. And if they don't, well, I mean, most of them in Australia are losing their jobs anyway. So that's another way out of it.
Yeah.
they're not getting reelected.
Well, along election lines here, Casey has a question. Hi, Sam and Rudy. Since this is the next question here. Since California Governor Gavin Newsom survived the recall, does this delay the overall recovery of California? I know it's going to get worse from now on, but Sam, you mentioned that eventually we will win and recover before New York. How many years of darkness does California have to go through? Do you also believe some rumors that some part of California will go underwater in the future due to climate change in the world? Thank you.
Right. So no to California underwater. Yes to California recovering. I did feel like California would be in the doldrums for 4 years, and that New York City would be like 10 years, but never truly recover to where it was at before, because things will move to other places and just not move back.
Okay.
Right? Like they'll lose stuff like for good kind of thing, right? So yeah, so I would say, yeah, I had always said 4 years for California anyways. And so once they kick out all the corrupt people in California, then things will immediately start looking better. But then you're looking at maybe another 4 years after that. But like I said, immediately things will start to improve because California is such an economic engine, and it does have such a big economy. And once you stop, killing it, robbing it,
I forget what their what their
taxing
budget is
enough.
for like homeless, like all these people that are supposed to address homelessness, and the homelessness keeps increasing, but they still get a big fat paycheck. That kind of stuff just makes me laugh.
That's going to be over with.
Yeah. All right. Amiella has a Halloween question. Hi, Sam and Rudy. Halloween is coming up, and I always had fun with the holiday, but I heard there are significant satanic ceremonies that take place on the holiday, along with a high peak in child kidnappings for child sacrifices, etc., for these ceremonies. What overall energy and thoughts do you have regarding this upcoming holiday? Thanks.
So I don't believe that is true. When you were reading that out loud. So that is just a rumor, Amiella. Again, just, clickbait and I think that a lot of times people don't really have anything to talk about. So they make stuff up and they might say it as a fact, but it's not really, or maybe it was for 1 year.
Yeah.
The number of people who are doing satanic ceremonies is pretty small. The ones who are doing satanic ceremonies where they're actually sacrificing children, I'm not aware of any of those.
Okay.
I do know that there might be some that would sacrifice animals, but not children. So I don't see that, Amiella, as being something that, I feel like, people should be more concerned about, safety in their vehicles. Don't leave all that heavy stuff laying around in your car, because, if you roll it and you get bonked in the head, so you worry about all this other crazy stuff, but yet you got your kids strapped in and you got, a laptop that can clock her in the head if you had to stop quickly. So I'm just like, that's what the people on the other side said. They said just start looking at the more serious and likely stuff rather than this, nonsense that somebody is spreading around, that there's satanic people out there that are going to grab your kids. And I am. So and thank you, Amiella, for bringing that up, because Halloween is coming up. So we're going to be hearing about that nonsense again. And now we've handled it. So I appreciate those questions, because I'm not aware of it until I can tap into the blab and get the answer.
Okay. Let's skip down to Ann Gret's question here. If we have time, we'll come back to Amiella's second question. But Anna Gret writes, "Good evening, Samantha and Rudy. Does the water of Lourdes have healing properties, and will be more?" Oh, okay. So let me restate this. Does the water of Lourdes have healing properties, and will there be more apparitions of Mary in Majora in Serbia? I think it's that, as Marian apparitions in Majori in Serbia. I think that's where they saw Mary, like right, the apparition of Mary showed up.
Well, that was in, I thought that was in Italy.
I'm not familiar with those. Our Lady of Majori, I'm saying that wrong, I know.
The Lady of Fatima is the one you're thinking about.
Yeah,
That's
I might
Portugal.
be thinking of.
It wasn't Italy, it was Portugal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Majori is in Serbia. So I guess this is where the difference between Serbia's, the Catholic, and the Muslims there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you see more of these miracles, yeah.
Right. So that original story, I'm feeling like it was made up because of what happened with Fatima. So was the Serbian one. It must have been afterwards.
Okay.
Right. I want to look it up now. Everyone's here. I'm like, what went on there?
So let's see. Our Lady. So the Majora, Our Lady of, also called Queen of Peace. When was this? So this looked like in 1981 in June, maybe.
Oh, okay. So it was it's right then, because it wouldn't fit the story if it happened before Lady of Fatima.
Okay.
So because the people on the other side, I'd never heard of this before, and then the people said, oh, well, this was just somebody trying to get attention for their area. They got this idea from the Lady of Fatima, which has all these people who travel there all the time now. They wanted to have the same type of attention. So they made this up. But one of the things that came up when you were reading the question from Angret was that there will be apparitions in other parts of the world, not in Serbia, but because they did happen, like the Lady of Fatima, like that really did happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about the water? Do any of these sacred places have healing properties in some of the waters?
No, again, just a tourist trap thing. Just somebody made it up a long time ago, and it just perpetuated over the years. And I feel bad about this because this kind of stuff, it really does exist.
Yeah.
It's just like somebody who can do what I can do. People like me, we really do exist. It's just that unfortunately, we work in a realm where 95% of the people cannot do what they say that they can do. And it's unfortunate, but I just always caution people, approach this. It's an entire industry, and just approach it carefully. Like I was talking before about, I find that the people usually give me at least 3 pieces of information about a particular subject, so that you can't say that it's a coincidence, my prediction, with the information that I gave. Whereas some people are just saying very random things that, never come true. or they do, but it's like they almost happen right away, because when you look at the number of times that these types of things happen in the world, like I said, somebody talking about coastal waterways and tsunamis or earthquakes, and it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, we're going to get like 7 of those just in the next couple of years. Like, oh my God.
All right. So our next question from Marlon Gone Surfing. Hi, Sam and Rudy. My family's company used to do logistics work for the secret USA military base in Alice Springs, Australia, the middle of Australia in the desert. They were tracking UFO activity there, right? Anything else they were doing, like spacecraft landings? Someone mentioned in the past that they also performed genetic modification to the stolen generation of native people of the land and practiced some real dark energy there. True or false? So, Sam, just in general, anything with this base in Alice Springs, Australia, that went on that you can see?
Well, they did do some of their stealth bomber flies, like, because again, they have to find a place in the middle of nowhere where they can do that. And also the laser, and also the UFO technology that they're working on, that would also be flown out of there as well. The stuff about the genetic modification and dark energy stuff, like none of that is true. Again, just no talents with a camera and a microphone getting on YouTube and talking about crazy SHIT that they just made up.
No proof to go with it. Yeah.
Nope.
All right. Marcus says, "Hi, Sam. Is there such a thing as an old soul? I always felt like I'm an old soul, as if I've lived many lives before this one. Is there any truth to that?"
Oh yeah, it absolutely, it is true. I mean, some of us, it took us, hundreds of lives to arrive to where we were, because that's what happens is you reincarnate, and then you come back again and again, and you do choose to come back or not come back. That is one thing that is true about the whole choice thing, that, oh yeah, you make a choice to come back or not. Yeah, you do. You're right. But as far as choosing it, we've already examined that. And I was happy to get an answer in regards to that, because that was something I was curious about as well. But yeah, I think that sometimes you can see with little kids that their memories of their previous life are coming through, because it's like they are like an old soul.
Yeah.
And they like to be with the adults, and they want to do grown-up things, and it's because, you know, the number of years that you're a small child in your lifetime is a very small percentage compared to the rest of the years you spend as an adult. So I always thought that was a very cool thing, and again, just kind of proof in a loose kind of way. And I know we talked before about, you know, examining things, and now during the show, Rudy Psychic Meetup, I mean, I don't necessarily prove my abilities. We're just talking about stuff that I feel like I can get information from the people on the other side. But I only feel confident to do that because of the other proof that I already have, that I've posted, you know, doing readings, you know, doing a lot of things. So that prove that I have abilities. But again, anyone who's listening to this for the first time, they would be like, lady, you haven't proven anything either. You're just talking a whole bunch of stuff. They're just asking you questions, and then you're just, you know, blabbing whatever you think is the right answer. It's like, you know, true that. Yeah, I agree. But I don't know anything about any of these subjects. And that's why, for example, the Serbian one, I felt like what was being told to me by the people on the other side was true. But this was one of those things that I could get some confirmation that it was post Lady of Fatima.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, that was one of the simple ones that, you know, would prove to me, you know, that sort of thing.
Well, they can check your library for the other stuff that you've gotten right. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just having fun seeing what else we can pull out of the universe and the ethos and whatever. And I'm like, geez, you know, if I can pull out all this other information for people about their individual lives, then I can probably have some fun with all this other stuff that people want to know about.
All right. Just a couple questions left, Sam. Anmar says, alien disclosure when about? So, Sam, will there be an official alien disclosure, or something that, I guess, where you can no longer deny that aliens exist?
Yes, that will all happen within the next 5 years.
Oh.
They're trying to drip out slowly, because they do feel that at some point the aliens are going to reveal themselves anyways, and they don't want to have full-blown panic. They want to have people's minds kind of, you know, bent around this. They don't want people to be all freaking out, and
enough people probably won't be freaked out that it'll be okay. All right. Jackie B says, hi, Sam and Rudy. Is the La Palma volcano the one you had described 2 years ago as the beginning of the bull market? Volcano, Deutsche Bank, gold, silver, cryptos. Thank you.
Well, I kind of said specifically the Italian.
Yeah.
I said a volcano in Italy. But again, they're all part of a big system of the same system of volcanoes. So Etna also blew as well.
Yeah.
Again. So, but that was after La Palma. But again, they're all connected. So this isn't a crazy thing to have this going on. But no, that particular one, it's the one in Italy that's blowing its top. That was the one I was talking about. But I mean, it's been doing it now. Just that it's getting more and more serious. And I'm thinking that it's going to have a great big explosion. And then that's when we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like this big buildup, you know. So again, if you were going to compare the breakdown of the banking system that as we know it,
Okay. You want to do the last question here from Amiella? All right. If the Aryan race originated from alien species, where did the Asian race and Black race originate? Which race is the true original first Earth dwellers?
Well, first of all, the Aryan race did not originate from the alien species. Mankind did. And what happened is that mankind originated, and then over the millennials, the different races were created just from living in different parts of the world, different mixes of DNA from different tribes or groups of people. You know, isn't it interesting that sometimes, you know, just looking at somebody's body shape and the shape of their head, you know, and they're from Africa, you'll be like, oh, they're from that country, or they're part of that tribe. And it's because they have a certain look to them. But that all came afterwards. So that was another BS thing that, like I said, that was what the Nazis tried to say, why they were the superior race, because, oh, well, we were the ones that were actually created by aliens. No, you weren't. Big lie. It was mankind was all created, and then we shaped and formed into the different races that we became.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Sam. It was a great show tonight. A lot of interesting stuff, and we'll look forward to the meetup with Moo tomorrow, and we'll catch everyone here again in 2 weeks.
Great. Thanks so much again, everyone, for hanging out, and thanks again, Rudy, for the great topics in the beginning of the show. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys and Moo Ant tomorrow. Bye for now.